maybe it's not a bad time to revisit some old conversations. Because one of the biggest talking points in regards to the Montreal Canadiens has been the idea of trading for a second-line center. Now that I'm thinking about it, honestly, that's not a unique idea. All three of my favorite teams have literally the same goal this offseason. Get a second-line center. Vancouver needs one behind Elias Pettersson. Montreal needs one behind Nick Suzuki. Both of these teams, by the way, facing their second-line centers with injury problems, which is why there is a need for a second-line center. Shout out to Filipino and Kirby Dach. And then Detroit also needs a second-line center behind Dylan Larkin. So yeah, all three of my favorite teams need second-line centers. That's kind of funny. But in this video, I wanted to dive into a particular second-line center conversation, one that was brought up a few months ago, but also one that has resurfaced a little bit and has been discussed on Twitter to a decently significant capacity. To help us out, let's head over to an article published on Le Journal de Québec from earlier. When was this published? In March. Yeah, this is from a while ago, but I did see this idea gaining some traction again, which is why I wanted to dive into it here. Also, I don't think we made a video about this when it initially went down, but Le Journal de Québec has the scoop here. Ryan O'Reilly versus Logan Mailloux. It's a heated debate on our set. The Montreal Canadiens fuel passions, especially when we talk about what the organization needs to do to improve and continue its progression. During our special broadcast during the NHL's trade deadline on Friday, Jean-Charles Lajoie and Tony Marinaro had a heated discussion regarding what the Habs should do with prospect Logan Mailloux. The first person, Jean-Charles Lajoie, believes the Habs should trade the 21-year-old right-handed D-man and other players to get their hands on Nashville Predators forward Ryan O'Reilly. Marinaro, for his part, is convinced that this would be a serious mistake. The entire video is available on the article. You can see them kind of yelling at each other, and it's kind of funny. It's French, it's Quebec, you know what it is when you're getting into these kinds of things, but ultimately, the conversation is fairly simple here. Logan Mailloux or Ryan O'Reilly? Now, of course, you wouldn't make this trade one for one. You would have to probably add some stuff if you're Montreal to get a center of the caliber of Ryan O'Reilly onto your team. But let's dive into what it is O'Reilly could bring the Montreal Canadiens. He's 34 years old, making $4.5 million a year till the end of 26-27. Sure, he is an older guy, but he is coming off a season where he had 53 points in 79 games played. Sure, it is a step down from the 69 points he had last year as a member of the Nashville Predators. But the fact that Nashville was so dog water this previous year, I think kind of vindicates that. And if you think about what O'Reilly was able to bring to other organizations like Toronto in 2023, point per game guy in the postseason as they made their first second round appearance in, 2 decades, something like that? As well as being the captain of a St. Louis Blues team that was just so dominant. He wasn't the captain when they won the Cup in 2018-19, but he was there, and he definitely was a prime contributor, as noted by his Conn Smythe win. Ryan O'Reilly is a two-way center who can win faceoffs, and he is a very solid all-around guy. Honestly, we're talking a lot about Sidney Crosby nowadays. If you're not able to get Sidney Crosby, which of course is not a realistic goal in the slightest, but if you're not able to get him, Ryan O'Reilly is a really nice, I don't want to say consolation prize, but kind of a consolation prize. He's kind of like a Crosby light, if you wanted to make that comparison. I don't think it's too inaccurate here. Everything that Crosby is good at, Ryan O'Reilly is maybe not as good at, but he's pretty alright at instead. Of course, magnitude of players is definitely varied from Sid to Ryan O'Reilly, but that's why Ryan O'Reilly's making half the amount of money. He's only making 4.5 versus Sid and his $8.7 million AAV. But O'Reilly, of course, is a little bit on the older side. Do you really want this kind of a guy in an age range like this to be a second-line center? Honestly, if he makes the Canadiens all the more impressive and improved in the short term, I don't see why this would be a terrible acquisition. It's just, for Logan Mailloux, you might have to reevaluate whether or not your priorities are in the right spot here. That's not to diss Jean-Charles Lajoie or Renaud Lavoie in any capacity. I'm just saying you would need to think about it if you were trading Mailloux away. Logan Mailloux is a guy that I think a lot of Habs fans are believing is going to be a top 4 right-handed D-man on this team. He is one of the better guys who happens to be a right-handed D-man prospect in the system. 22 years old, 6'3", 212, signed on to the end of 2026 on an ELC. Mailloux is coming off a season in Laval where he had 33 points in 63 games played. Admittedly, he was more offensively productive last year, with 47 points in 72 games. But Mailloux also had 4 points in 7 Montreal Canadiens games this year. He was oddly productive in the limited sample he had with Montreal, and there's reason why folks like Renaud Lavoie are saying, hey, it'd be a massive mistake to trade this guy away. Look at the impact, look at the offensive potential. If long-term you have yourselves a Hudson Reinbacher, Goulet Mailloux top 2 pairs, then you have a really solid D-core that's spread out with goal scoring, point producing, and defensive responsibility. Maybe not necessarily goal scoring from Lane Hudson's POV, but Logan Mailloux had a cannon of a shot in junior, so I think that's probably a little bit more of a translatable factor to his game. Also, he had 12 goals this year. There's not a lack of goal scoring support out of Logan Mailloux and his profile. But if you're in a spot where Montreal does still have some other guys that are able to play on the right side, Lane Hudson is one of them, mind you, and you're not really in a big spot to push for Mailloux to making a spot next season, if you think that he still has some more AHL development time he needs to go through, if you think that Reinbacher is going to challenge for that spot, then honestly, if you twisted my arm and you were like, hey, trade away Logan Mailloux, maybe a second or a third or even a first. Okay, maybe a first would be kicking it a little bit too far. But a second or a third and Mailloux for Ryan O'Reilly, honestly, I don't want to go out there and say that's a great trade, but I might bite. The Predators are also maybe thinking to themselves, hey, we got burned last time. We sent over a right-handed D-man to Montreal and Alexandre Carrier, so why not get one of their better ones and just kind of even the stakes a little bit? And if Ryan O'Reilly does not want to be here, then we can send him away in the process, and that's going to be kind of balancing it out from that perspective. I honestly think there's a weird enough argument to make it work. I just want to know what you think, though. That's kind of the entire reason we're making this video, because ultimately, the idea of trading away Logan Mailloux is something that I think no Canadiens fan was thinking about doing at the beginning of the season. Because they had such a successful year, and because we know the Canadiens' rebuild is a lot further along than we might have expected, that's why there's conversations like these to be had. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think of Ryan O'Reilly for some sort of Logan Mailloux swap? Do you think it works out for both teams, and do you think the Montreal Canadiens would benefit the most here? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.